Hi BookTube, Lynette here, and today's video is going to be all the books that I finished in the month of February. February was a much slower reading month for me when you compare it to January. Although it's still a good amount of books to finish in the month. I averaged one a week. I've managed to finish 4 books in total. Two of them were physical books and 2 of them were ebooks. I started listening to an audiobook, but I didn't finish it, so I'm not counting it for this. My average rating across the 4 books that I finished was 3.88. I read 1,613 pages across everything that I picked up, because I take it from Storygraph, so it counts all the pages that you've read in all the books, not just the books that you finished. And I listened to 14 hours and 32 minutes of the audiobook that I have on the go at the point that I'm filming this video. My genres were romance, crime, and historical retelling. And 3 of the books that I read were ones that were already on my shelves at the start of 2024. So I have earned myself another £3 worth of book money, bringing me up to £10 in total. Not that I have actually set that money aside yet. I'm thinking what I might do is just make a note of it. I'm saving money. I've changed the way, completely off topic, I've changed the way I set my budget every month to make sure that I am putting away money in savings every month, because I have a couple of expensive trips this year. One that is already paid for, but I need the spending money for it. And the other one that I have to pay for and I need spending money for it. But I'm thinking that when I get to the end of the year now, I'll get to the end of December and I'll look at what I've saved, and the money that I have earned, I will buy myself a gift card either to Waterstones or to probably National Book Tokens so that I can use it anywhere. But yes, so I've done quite well for myself this month, and I've managed to avoid watching too much TV, although I am getting sucked into 1923, which is one of the prequel series to Yellowstone. I currently have a Paramount Plus subscription because it was £3.50 for 3 months, and then it will go up to full price. So yeah, so I've done really quite well, although I have fallen behind with YouTube, so I need to catch up with watching that. So I shall be binge watching that at weekends while I'm trying to do my housework and read books in the month of March. So yeah, so I've been trying to read, but it just feels really slow. So I'm not quite sure. I'm hoping March is a bit speedier for me. 3.88 across 4 books. That isn't a bad average. I think it was a 3, 2 4 stars and 4.5 star. So that isn't bad at all. So let's get into what the books were. The first book that I finished in the month is Phantom by Jo Nesbø. This is book 9 in the Harry Hole detective series. And it's not a good idea to start a series in the middle. I've never read any of these books before. I've never read from Jo Nesbø before. I've never read any of the Harry Hole books before. But this was on my TBR. I started it in January towards the Clean Up Your Kindle challenge that was going that month. And I didn't finish it. I hadn't read very much of it. So I carried it over into February and read the majority of it in February. And I think this was some of the slow going in the month, because this certainly felt like it was the longest one to read, the longest one to finish. Anyway, it's about Harry Hole, who is an ex-detective. It is set in Oslo, in Norway, and it's a murder mystery. We are trying to solve the mystery of a young man connected to someone that Harry used to know, a young man that Harry used to know was a father figure for, and that young man has been accused of the murder. Harry is trying to solve it. Harry comes into various stages of danger because of his digging into this world. And we have these shadowy figures who seem to be running the crime, potentially are responsible for it. It's quite good. You didn't know who the killer was. You had clues throughout, but until the author wanted you to know, you did not know for definite who the killer was. You only had a suspicion, which I really appreciated. It is very tempting to me to go back and see, go back to the beginning and follow the character arc, because this Harry Hole has had quite a traumatic backstory, which keeps being referenced throughout this book. Which obviously was a little off-putting to me, because I don't know the backstory, because I haven't read them, because I'm dumb and I picked up a book in the middle of the series. And I've done that before, and I should really learn my lesson and stop doing that. And if it looks like it's a series, I should really look at where it is in the series before I actually download it. Anyway, this was a book from my collection. It was one that was on my Kindle. It's been on my Kindle for about 13 years at this point. So it was really great to get that one off of my TBR once and for all. I have thought about reading it many times. So that one is done, out of the way. Kindle cleaned up a little bit. The second book that I finished for the month was another one off of my TBR. And it was one of the options that we had for the Cozy Book Co Club for the month of February. But it wasn't actually picked. It was one that a few of us had on our TBRs. So a couple of us did decide to go ahead and read it anyway, as well as the book club read. Look at me go. I mean, there are months I can't read one book for the book club, and I read 2 this month. So go me. Can I have a pass later on in the year, please, Jess, Chrissy and Susie, please? Because you know me. I won't finish one of them. Anyway, enough of that. The next book that I finished was Atalanta by Jennifer Saint. This has been on my TBR for 12 months. I pre-ordered this last year. I pre-ordered it. In fact, I pre-ordered it in 2022 because it was released in 2023. And as soon as I knew it was available, I pre-ordered it because I have her previous 2 books, which are Ariadne and Electra, and absolutely loved them. And this is the next book. And also, I needed to get it read because Jennifer Saint has a 4th book coming out in May, and that is Hera, which I'm really looking forward to. If you haven't gathered by the book titles, Jennifer Saint writes Greek history, myths, and she tells them from the female perspective, from the women of that time. That isn't Tabby's thought on the book. I do apologise. She's feeling very needy again today, probably because she's jealous of the camera. Anyway, carrying on. I've forgotten where I was. Anyway, Jennifer Saint writes Greek myths from the female perspective at that time. And Atalanta is one of those little known myths. She is the daughter of the king of Arcadia. And her original myth is that the king of Arcadia basically had her dumped as a baby in the forest of Artemis because he wanted a son and Atalanta was a girl. Artemis raised Atalanta and taught her to be a hunter, and at a point in her life, the myth that she's known for is the story of Hippomenes, where she is returned to her father's court because he needs an heir to the throne and he's never had one. Atalanta is the only heir he ever had. And he puts out a challenge for the man who can beat Atalanta in a race will win her hand in marriage. Atalanta doesn't want to be married. And Hippomenes wins the race because he approaches I've forgotten the goddess's name. Yes, Hippomenes went to the goddess Aphrodite and asked for help to beat Atalanta, and she gave him 3 golden apples, which he threw down strategically during the race, which distracted Atalanta and allowed him to beat her, and then he became her husband. That's the original myth. There are mentions of Atalanta in Greek myth in relation to Jason and the Argonauts, the tale of the Argonauts. So what Jennifer Saint has done is she's taken those mentions and she's turned them into a whole story. So the first third of the book is all about Atalanta growing up in Artemis Forest and learning to be a hunter. Second third of the book is all about the trials of Jason as he goes to get the golden fleece, and then the last third of the book is Atalanta in her father's court and her having to face this race, and obviously how Hippomenes defeats her. But it's all told through Atalanta's eyes, so there is a slightly different slant. So when you read this book, the story of Hippomenes at the end has a slightly different slant on it to how you read it if you read the actual myth told from Hippomenes' point of view and the King of Arcadia. And I really, really enjoy this. I love how these books just feel so accessible to me. Now, I have tried to read Greek myths in the past. I mean, I have the Iliad on my Kindle to get to at some point, and I just never get to it. I've got the Odyssey as well to read. They're both items that have been said, you know, if you're interested in Greek mythology, you need, you know, read these texts. I've started listening to one of the books by Stephen Fry because I love his reading voice. And again, I kind of like got partway through and I stopped. But with Jennifer Saint's books, I just feel compelled to keep reading. And I think it is because it is told from the female perspective. And that is what I truly enjoy about these books, is that it takes it and it turns it and it gives it a different viewpoint. And I thoroughly enjoy that. And I'm really looking forward to Hera coming out in May. As we all know, Hera was quite a vengeful goddess. She was the wife of Zeus, and we all know Zeus had many, many affairs, and a lot of what Hera did is put down as vengeful and jealous. And I'm really interested to read how Jennifer Saint puts a spin on it, because, yeah, people don't do things without reason, and obviously she's going to give Hera some feeling. So I'm thoroughly looking forward to that. I have had it recommended to me that if I love how accessible these books feel, that I really need to start reading Natalie Haynes. I do have one of Natalie Haynes' books, and I am aiming to try and get to that at some point this year. And I think there's a couple of other female writers who are delving into Greek and Roman mythology that I need to get to as well and start picking up and indulging in my interest in these, my vague interest in these that I've had since I was in my late teens. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this one. I can't fault Jennifer Saint at all. The third book that I finished was the actual pick for Cozy Book Co this month. Go me! I read 2 books for the book club this month. Not sure when I'm going to get to the third. I am going to read Gods of Jade and Shadow, which was our third option for the retellings. So yes, I am going to get to that at some point, but not quite sure when. Anyway, the book that we actually chose to read was The Wolf Den by L.O.D. Harper. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I do not know a lot of... I think I said in my TBR video that this was Greek retelling. It's not Greek retelling, it's Roman. It's based in Pompeii, which is in Italy, not Greece. But the main character, Amara, is Greek. She has been sold into slavery in Italy as a prostitute. And this is about her story, how she is trying to find the money to buy her way out of slavery and become a freed woman. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the story. I don't know a lot about the history, and there were some factual historical characters in here that, after we had the book club meeting, unfortunately, is not as factual as it should be. Elodie Harper apparently has, although she has done some research, it seems that she has taken a lot of license with the timeline, and especially the timeline of some of the characters, especially the factual timeline, which was disappointing to learn about, because I thoroughly enjoy, I mean, if you're going to do historical retellings, you need to at least have some factual basis, and you need to get those facts right to make it enjoyable. Ignoring all of that, this is a good book. This is a good story. If you pretend that none of the people in here are factual, I loved this. This was one of the, in fact, this was the highest rated book of the month for me. I gave it 4.5 stars. I was thoroughly drawn in by all the women, because Amara is not the only prostitute. The Wolf Den is actually the name of the brothel where she is working, where she is enslaved, and we get input from all the other women that are there, and they're all there in different circumstances. They all have different feelings towards their circumstances. Some are resigned to it, some are acting like it's normal and that, you know, that's the way it's going to be, and some just want to escape, some hate it. Obviously in Amara's case, she wants to escape. This ends, I think the way this ends is a device plot just to move the next story forward, with Amara's emotions. However, not necessarily did I think it was needed. I think that is part of the reason why it's lost 0.5 star. There was something else that bothered me throughout, and I can't remember what it was, and I couldn't remember on the book group either what it was, and I only finished it a couple of days before, but I forgot to write it down what it was that was bothering me. But yes, you have to be prepared going into this book. Obviously, you know, Amara is a prostitute. She is in slavery. She is not doing this willingly. So effectively, every encounter she has with a man pretty much is rape. There are a couple of situations where it is dubious consent, I think is the term that we use in romance, because the men are good to her and make it clear that if she says no, then they'll respect it to a degree. But yes, so be prepared. There are trigger warnings in here, so be prepared for that if you intend to pick it up. But I absolutely am going to go to the library. I haven't got there yet, but I have a book to take back in the next couple of days. So I am absolutely, if they're still on the shelf, they were a week ago, if they're still on the shelf, I am definitely picking up The House with the Golden Door and The Temple of Fortuna so that I can finish reading the series, because I am fully tied into Amara and I want to know where this goes next. My final finish of the month was Beloved by Corinne Michaels. This is book 1 in her Salvation series, and this is another series where I started in the middle and when I should have gone to the beginning. Anyway, this one isn't that bad because the Salvation series is 6 of the books are duologies, but they're interconnected duologies, and then there is one standalone book which again is connected to the 3 duologies, which is why it's called a series. Many years ago, about 6 or 7 years ago, I read books 3 and 4 in the series, which is the second duology. And at the time, I enjoyed them so much, I downloaded book 1 and then never read it. Until February this year, when I was looking for something quick that wasn't historical, that I could get through quite quickly and maybe reinvigorate. I was wasn't feeling slumpish. but I was certainly feeling low. I think my mood was quite low. I was having a hard time mentally. For me, the hormones hit hard, and I needed something that I could lose myself in, that wasn't going to be depressing, that I knew would come out well in the end. So I went for this one because I needed to do it. It continues a series. Even though it's the first book in the series, it's the third that I'm reading. So technically it's a continuation. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's set in New York, and it's following Jackson and Catherine. Catherine literally falls into Jackson's lap in a restaurant, and fate then intervenes to bring them back together after Catherine refuses to have a drink with him. And it's workplace romance, and it's all the fallout from there. Both of them have issues. Jackson is far more secretive with his issues than Catherine. At the point that I'm filming this, I am reading book 2, and there has been mention of Jackson's past, which I think is probably going to affect Catherine, because he's keeping it from her when he should really just confide in her. He's already caused a load of upset in this book. Catherine is afraid of being walked away from, because all the men she has ever loved, right from the time she was a child, have upped and walked away and walked out of her life. And she's now very afraid that Jackson is going to do the same, and she's trying to push him away before he can get too much of a hold on her heart. And Jackson is also afraid because everyone he loves dies. So there's a little bit of push and pull. It does have an impact on the end. It is a duology, so it isn't a happy ever after at the end of this book. The happy ever after is going to come at the end of book 2. I don't know why I've slept on this author. If you saw my to be read video last week, then you know that book 2, Beholden, is the priority for me to read during the month of March. At the point you're seeing this, I've probably already finished it, to be perfectly honest with you. And I don't know why I've slept on this author. I have her whole backlist now listed out in my reading journal, and a lot of them are available in Kindle Unlimited. So I have a feeling I will be making good use of my Kindle Unlimited subscription this year, because I will be finishing it off. I will be having a go at reading more from her. Again, thoroughly enjoyed it. It was for romance, it's 4 stars. Now, I rate romance and other books slightly differently, because a 4-star romance is not a 4-star fantasy. It's more about the emotions and how well it made me feel. There is some very steamy scenes in these 2 books. Corinne Michaels is one of those authors who has just the right amount of steam for me. Again, which is another reason why I don't understand why I slept on these books for so long. But yeah, that was my reading month. I actually really pleased with all the books that I read. Like I say, I've got another 3 off of my to be read list. At this point in the year, I have brought 6 new books into my home. 3 of those were purchases. 3 of those were library checkouts. And at this point in the year, I've only got 1 of the purchases unread and 1 of the library books unread, although that's at the point that I'm filming this. I could well have finished those as well. So I feel like I'm doing really well with bringing my TBR down, because I have only increased it by 2, and by the end of March I'm hoping that that will have reduced as well, and that actually I will have read more from my TBR than I have brought in. So yes, all well and good start for the first couple of months of the year. And yeah, how are you doing with your TBR? Let me know in the comments down below. How was your reading month in February? Did you do well? Let me know that as well. If you're feeling in a slump, then pick up your favourite book That's my recommendation. Or pick up something that you know will be an easy read, quick read. And yeah, let me know. We'll chat about it down in the comments. If you have enjoyed this video, then please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already, subscribe to the channel so you see more of me in your feed. And I look forward to seeing you in my next one. Bye.